This is a City AM Studios production.
Hello and welcome back to Business as Usual, brought to you by Okta, with me, Martin Kimber.
And me, Matt Kenyon. Coming up, the chair of BP has been ousted following serious concerns about his conduct.
Mega pay packages for London AI workers will reveal what Silicone Valley salaries are up for grabs.
Plus, financial misery for West Ham as the club is relegated to the Championship. Here's what it means for the club and also for taxpayers across London.
Hello and welcome back to Business as Usual with me, Martin, and Matt's back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Where have you been?
I've been in Poland.
How was it?
Oh, it was lovely, yeah. But it's great to be back. Thank you, Simon, who's been in the presenting seat while I've been away. It's been fun listening to you guys. But it's great to be back. And, I mean, I've landed, as I often do these days, from somewhere in Central Europe, into Luton, actually, into the scorching heat of Luton, the record heat for a May day, which I think has probably now been broken by today's weather. Although that doesn't mean that the city is taking a siesta from its corporate news today. We've got quite a lot to get through with Simon, our trusty city editor, as ever, shedding light on all the capital market news going on today. The big one from Tuesday was the pretty dramatic news from BP. So the chair of the energy giant has been forced out. There's been a statement from BP's director, Amanda Blanc. She says that there have been serious concerns about the conduct of Albert Manifold, who is the now former chair of BP. Simon, what has been going on here?
Yeah, so we're in this sweltering weather, but one person that really is feeling the heat is Albert Manifold, the outgoing chair of BP, who's now been ousted after less than a year in the role. We don't know precisely why, but we've been told in a statement that it's in connection with governance, oversight and conduct issues. That's as far as we've got so far. I've no doubt we'll have more details in the coming days. But it's the latest in a long line of bosses at BP that just always seem to disappear, under a bit of a cloud, in some kind of scandal or other. It's only 2 years since the departure of Bernard Looney, the CEO who was ousted in 2023 over what was described as undisclosed relationships with colleagues.
Right.
I think we can all read between the lines as to what that means in that particular instance. But BP shares really taking the hit yesterday. Stock down more than 5%. So that is billions wiped off their value.
What verb is that on our...
I think that's a full slide.
Yeah.
Maybe a slick, given its oil. I don't know. But
what is the difference between a CEO quitting and a chairman quitting? What is the impact on the business, really?
Well, I mean, I guess, obviously the chief executive is more important, has more authority. But I think the thing about BP is it's more that this is a long list of, an ever-growing list of members of the board who seem to disappear in slightly unfortunate circumstances, shall we say.
It's funny because I remember writing the article where it was announced that Albert Manifold was taking over as chair. And I've not been here for that long. So, God knows how many more.
Question to you, do you have to have a ludicrous name to work at BP? I mean, you've got Bernard Looney, former chief executive. You've now got Mr. Manifold, who sounds like a character from Dad's Army, now departing as chairman. Former chairman, I've looked this up on Wikipedia, include Baron Strathermold, Carl-Henrik Svanberg, Helge Lund, that one's less odd. But, I mean, do you have to have quite a sort of eccentric name to work there?
Yeah, I mean, Bernard Looney, it made it seem like something was going to happen with that guy, didn't it? And then, of course, you also had Murray Auchincloss, which the sub-editors at newspapers had terrible trouble with the spelling on. But
these feel like J.K. Rowling characters of like big industrialists.
It's as if J.K. Rowling was coming up with names for a chairman.
Yeah,
Albert Manifold.
You don't have to have a strange name at BP, but it helps.
Now let's talk about Prince's Group. They IPO'd about 6 months ago. And there's already been a pretty substantial reshuffle at the top.
Yeah, so this is another big board change that's happened in the last few days. So another big boardroom shake-up on the London Stock Exchange. Just a few months after Prince's Group had its billion-pound IPO, the CEO, Simon Harrison, has left. That put a big hole in their share price. I mean, the stock slid about 10% last week after that was announced. We now know where he's going. he's going to a much smaller company called Ultimate Products. And this is the company that owns Salter, which many people know as something that they might well see in their kitchen, the air fryers. They do frying pans. They do all sorts of good cookware stuff. This has already sparked a lift in Ultimate Products' share price yesterday. We saw that go up as much as 10% immediately after the announcement. And analysts seem pretty happy with this move. We had some very flattering praise showered on Ultimate Products by Clive Black, one of CityM's favourite retail analysts of Shore Capital. So Clive Black wrote that the group has made what he said was a quite fabulous appointment. So you don't get higher praise than that. So we'll see. As I say, I mean, this company is much smaller than Prince's Group. I mean, Prince's Group turns over about $2 billion a year, and Ultimate Products is a very small fraction of that. But it's a big poach for them, a big move for them.
Just finally, Simon, you'd have had to be living in an Anderson shelter not to have noticed that it's flipping hot right now. And you've got an exclusive story about the air conditioning on the tube, or rather the lack thereof.
Yes, so regular users of the Central Line or the Victoria Line or the Bakerloo Line, people who pass through Oxford Circus, one of the busiest stations at the very centre of the tube map.
It's one of the lowest down.
Indeed, and it's massively busy as well, particularly at the weekends, but also it's a big commuter hub as well. They might have noticed several years ago there were these massive air vents installed at the top of all of the platforms. This was part of a multi-million-pound investment by TfL at the time to install air conditioning on these platforms because they got so unbelievably hot during the summer. And at the time, people welcomed it. Finally some air cooling on the platform in our tubes. But I can reveal that actually, since the beginning of last year, or possibly even before that, these cooling systems have been totally decommissioned, i.e. they don't actually work anymore.
But we've already spent the money.
Yeah. So TfL spent millions on this, and they don't even use them. Now, what I haven't established at the moment is whether they broke or whether they're too expensive to operate or whatever, but this multi-million-pound investment, and it's not even being used. So if
you know how long they were being used for before being put out to pasture?
Were they ever used?
I can certainly remember several years ago being on the platform and thinking, oh, this is nice and cool. So they definitely were at one point, but it's kind of staggering to think that when it's, above 30 degrees outside and TfL's own air conditioning isn't being used. And the thing that makes me concerned about it is we've got this new fleet of Piccadilly Line trains coming to our city in a few months' time. They are supposed to be the first deep-level trains to have air conditioning, which was TfL announced as quite a big thing at the time. But there's one thing where they have air conditioning. Are they actually going to be switched on? Because they're not at Oxford Circus.
And it is worrying as well because obviously we're having our first heatwave of the year, but we've not had one before June really before. So there could be 4 months of this intermittently.
Oh, I hope so.
Do you hope so?
That's why we're wearing our hats.
Yeah, for anyone who's just listening to this, I've sort of come into the studio saying only I am not wearing a hat.
Yeah, get with the programme.
Well, I had a big debate with Steve Deneen, our lifestyle editor, about, I think, air conditioning is probably the most consequential invention, possibly for the world economy ever. But I'm going to leave it there and invite absolutely no pushback to that point. So thank you very much for coming in, Simon.
Thank you.
Right, so coming up after the break, Anthropic, the AI giant, is going on a hiring spree. We will reveal the pretty eye-watering salaries on offer in London, so don't go anywhere. This episode is brought to you by Okta. AI agents are everywhere now, quietly making decisions across organisations. That's great until you stop and think, who's in charge?
If you don't know who an agent is, what it's connected to, or what it's allowed to do, you can't really trust it to act in your interests. That's the bit Okta focuses on. They secure the identity of AI agents, so there's one clear layer of control across the whole system.
Which means every agent has a clear identity, permissions, and a line of accountability, even as things scale.
Risk becomes something you manage, not guess at. Secure every agent, secure any agent. Okta secures AI.
Welcome back to Business as Usual.
The podcast that puts the interest into interest-free loans.
Let's let that sit there for a while.
Now, for years, British wages have languished behind those on the other side of the pond. But now, as King's Cross increasingly becomes London's AI hub, could we start to see some of those American salaries reach Britain? Saskia Koopman, City AM's tech reporter, is here with us. Saskia, how much money are AI companies paying people in London?
So Anthropic right now is offering some research engineers in London up to 630k per year.
Pounds. In pounds or rupees?
In pounds. And that
Gosh.
is just below 10, I think it's like 8 in London, but they are looking for 40 more roles in London as well, but they're just paid a tiny bit less than 630k. Still, doing quite well.
That must be some of the biggest tech salaries that you can get in London.
Yeah, I mean, OpenAI, Google DeepMind, they're all kind of doing the same thing. I think there's these huge compensation packages because there's an incredibly kind of small AI talent pool. So everyone's competing for the same people, and not that many people are trained on AI native in the way that these salaries are expecting them to be.
And is this because there's like a handful of universities, Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, who'll be producing a few hundred people, and it's a bit of a bidding war?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of our things that has always been kind of on our side as the UK in the AI race is talent. And I think it's a sign that, even these big techs from Silicon Valley are seeing London as their go-to European base, which is obviously a good sign.
And for us, 630,000 is a lot. I'm sure it's quite a lot in America as well. But I mean, on average, generally, labour in the UK is cheaper than in the US, isn't it? Especially for highly specialised roles.
That is true. But there's also, these companies that are based in the US, they are based on US regulation to AI, not UK. So it's also interesting that they're willing to expand their bases in somewhere where regulation is way tighter. I also think it's a weird contradiction because obviously the same people that are employing, en masse at scale with these huge salaries are also the ones that are warning us of, an AI job reckoning within their companies. And these software engineers that are being paid, these salaries are also the ones that are saying that they're AI agents are doing all the work. We interviewed someone from Deliveroo the other day, an employee who is a software engineer who said he hasn't written code in about a year. And that's been a trend that, AI agents are just doing that. And also the people that are checking their coding from their bosses, whatever, are also using AI agents. So how are they being paid that much and then actually offloading most of their work? So interesting.
I suppose it's striking as well because so many big tech firms, if they had to pick one European capital which to base themselves, would pick somewhere like Amsterdam or maybe somewhere like Dublin. And then now clearly something about the regulatory environment and the difference between the UK and the EU regulatory environment is making it more attractive.
Exactly.
Saskia, I think that's about all we have time for. Thank you very much for coming on the programme, and I'm sure
me.
We'll have you back on again very soon.
Thank you.
Or maybe the AI version of Saskia.
Yeah.
Sask AI.
Very good.
And finally, while Tottenham has narrowly held on to its place in the Premier League, West Ham has been relegated to the Championship. This is obviously grim news for fans, but it's also creating a bit of a financial nightmare for the club, its players and London taxpayers more broadly. To get stuck into the depths of West Ham's woes, we are joined by our Deputy Sports Editor, Matt Hardy. Welcome, Matt.
Hello, Matt.
Good to see you on the podcast today. So first off, Matt, this would be devastating for any club, but what is it about the specific setup of West Ham that makes it so particularly exposed to this kind of relegation?
Well, it's really interesting. Obviously, 3 teams go up, 3 teams go down from England's top flight every year. And West Ham kind of fell at the final hurdle. They actually won at the weekend, but
3-0.
Yeah, but it wasn't enough because Spurs managed to stay up. Basically, this is going to cost all 3 of us a bit of money. It's going to cost all of your listeners money because the stadium they use, which is the Olympic Stadium, it's now called the London Stadium, the rent they pay goes into City Hall's coffers. So it's basically, money. And that's going to decrease by around, Sadiq Khan says, around 2.5 million per season.
Why? Why are they going to pay less rent?
Because the agreement that was signed in 2012 before they moved between Baroness Karen Brady, who's now left the club, and the then Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, had some very favourable terms for the club. It basically meant that the stadium was occupied, which is kind of what they wanted, but it's extremely favourable. The fans hate the stadium. They're too far away from the pitch. It hasn't really gone well. It's 62,500 seats. But the rent goes down if they get relegated, and obviously that shortfall is going to come out of our pockets as London taxpayers.
Wow, so that money really isn't going back up again unless they go back into the Premier League, presumably?
Back in the Premier League. And may I also say, it was around 4.5 million a year, nearly 5 million per season to use a bit of real estate like that. I mean, what a deal.
Do we know if that's paid for the stadium yet, for building it?
I imagine no. There are still losses at the stadium, but obviously the legacy of London 2012 would have kind of been felt through the economy and spending in the last decade.
And even I know that if Tottenham had gone down instead, which was also a very real possibility, that would have been very embarrassing given their amazing stadium, which I'm told is one of the best in the world, possibly the best in Europe. It's even got a blooming brewery under it. I mean, that's a close shave for Tottenham, because if they'd sort of bombed out of the Premier League, then that would have caused quite a lot of issues for them as well.
I mean, long-serving director and co-owner Daniel Levy left the club in the last 12 months. What a time to have been relegated if that happened. I mean, it's absolutely devastating. It's also bad for London football, because I was reading this morning, Arsenal, who are in the Champions League final this weekend, they're the only London team who are going to have European football next year, which means those midweek nights, going to Stamford Bridge at Chelsea or there's a chance Fulham could have got there. It's not happening. Obviously, Palace can get there as well, but it's obviously just bad for all of us, because you guys know I like going to the football in the middle of the week.
You love a Tuesday night.
And I should say, this isn't just bad on the taxpayer. Sam Cunningham's column for City AM out this morning leads on the fact that all players have something in their contract that if they get relegated, their wages get split in half. So all of those players on hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, not so much anymore.
Oh, West Ham going to have to start selling players now?
Probably. They're going to have to find some shortfall. Players will want to leave. Some players will have stipulations in their contracts that if they get relegated, they can go. They've got some really good players as well who could get 30, 40, 50 million for the team. And it comes, as I said earlier, Karen Brady's left the club, Baroness Brady. She's widely quite liked in the Premier League circle. She's a member of the Lords. She's got kind of influence. She was anti the regulator.
She's clearly a great negotiator.
Negotiator. Obviously, did a very good job at Birmingham City before West Ham.
Now, very briefly, Matt, the FBI are preparing for drone strikes on American football pitches during the World Cup.
Insert screaming noises. Now, look, it's absolutely nothing new to look at major tournaments in any sport and have security. You've got to look back to the Munich Olympics. I mean, Grand Nationals were called off over IRA bombs. This happens a lot anyway. And now you'd think that we're kind of heading towards cyber warfare. We had a piece recently about, do you hack the football or do you hack the broadcaster? Do you stop it going anywhere?
I don't think you can hack a football.
Do you and ways of,
depends what tracking technology.
Do you hack the ticketing system so no one can get in the stadium? Right. Anyway, we've got some comments in the paper this morning from some security experts that are basically saying the FBI have anti-drone people in place for this World Cup, because there is a threat that what's going on in Iran and just general conflicts around the world, there's terror cells everywhere, could ignite some domestic terror rather than overseas terror.
Right, so this is like Americans who are
all people in America
who have been sort of radicalised by what they've seen.
Yeah, and obviously this is technically nothing new, but the problem now is how warfare is changing. I mentioned software earlier, but I was talking to someone who said, is it beyond the realms of possibility that somebody has bought a drone completely legally and attaches something to it and tries to get it in stadiums? The comments I've got this morning kind of suggest that the FBI's anti-drone technology does work. Obviously, they're the FBI, but there are also other agencies, whether it's local police, local enforcement, federal and state level. If they've all got their anti-drone stuff on at the same time, it might actually just counteract each other. So they're going to have to be completely cooperative. It's 104 matches across Canada, America, and Mexico.
That's authorities that are not necessarily going to communicate with each other. In some cases, they're in a bit of a diplomatic war of words. That's state level, federal level, Canadian government, Mexican government.
And obviously, if you work down the three countries, Canada have had some problems letting people in over visas and immigration. America, there are worries about ICE and whether people can come in who are from certain countries on various lists that the president has.
While checking people's social media.
Yeah, there's some chat
He'll be checking Mauricio's tweets about Donald Trump,
There's some chat about Democratic Republic of the Congo and whether there's going to have to be some kind of testing to make sure that there's no kind of Ebola threat, which is unheard of, called crazy. And Mexico, wasn't too long ago, we had the cartel deaths in Guadalajara, and they're hosting World Cup matches too. So really, it is.
Wow. And that kicks off in a couple of weeks' time.
A couple of weeks' time.
Excellent. And we'll have all your World Cup coverage here. Well, some World Cup coverage
The
here.
business of how it works.
The business of the World Cup. Thank you very much for coming in, Matt Hardy. See you again very soon.
Thank you.
Well, that is all we have time for today. So thank you, as ever, for listening to Business as Usual, brought to you by Okta.
Don't forget to subscribe to City AM's many different newsletters and, of course, to download our free app.
It even has puzzles now. So we will be back in your podcast feeds tomorrow at 6 a.m. But for now, goodbye.
Goodbye.